The Jit from Modern Family is back as our guy Andy Bailey from Bleacher Report dropped a new article today titled Wild Trade Idea Using 5 Teams and 10 Players to Get Giannis Antetokounmpo to New York. Now, earlier today, I was sitting at work where I've actually been really busy because on a little bit of a personal note, I did sign up for the PE exam, which is basically the exam that engineers have to take to get certified. And it's a pretty big deal. If you're in the engineering community, it'll be one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life. And I take that test in 3 months. So for the next 3 months, I'll be on a pretty strict study schedule. So just bear with me while I try to fit in these videos while I can for the next 3 months. But anyways, I was sitting at work, I was doing some studying, and I got a Bleacher Report notification. I couldn't help but look, and then I saw the name of this very interesting article, and I said, let me check it out real quick. I'm curious to see what teams are involved. And as I started reading the article, I read Giannis to New York, and then I started reading that the Bucks receive Andrew Wiggins and Terry Rozier and first-round picks from the Heat. So the Miami Heat, of all the teams were involved in this trade, of course they are, because we're always involved in these hypotheticals that never even happen. But that being said, I did find this trade very interesting, so that's what I want to get into in today's video. It's a bit of a massive one, so I think I'm actually gonna break it down team by team, and we'll kind of share my thoughts as I go along. So to recap the trade, it goes as follows. The Miami Heat receive Karl Anthony Towns. The Knicks receive Giannis Antetokounmpo. The Milwaukee Bucks receive Andrew Wiggins, Terry Rozier, Harrison Barnes, 1 first-round pick from the Knicks, 2 first-round picks from the Miami Heat, and 3 second-round picks from the New York Knicks. And then the San Antonio Spurs will receive Lauri Markkanen. The Utah Jazz will then receive Keldon Johnson, Bobby Portis, Jeremy Sohan, Tyler Kolek, and 2 first-round picks from the San Antonio Spurs. So where do I even begin? Well, I think I'll start with the Miami Heat, who would be receiving Towns in exchange for Wiggins, Rozier, and 2 first-round picks. My initial reaction is that's quite a bit of value because 2 first-round picks is all we have to trade right now. And I don't know if I'd want to give up both of them for a guy of Towns' caliber, who I do like a lot. I've always really liked him. He's probably been a top 5 center in the league for maybe close to a decade now. But I don't necessarily think he's a cornerstone player. FanDuel has him right now at plus 40,000 to win MVP. He's tied with guys like Şengün and Jalen Williams. They do actually have him slightly above Bam, who's at plus 50,000 to win MVP. The point is, I don't necessarily think he's a franchise-changing player, although he is one of the best players in the whole league at his position, and definitely someone that fits in fantastically from a fit standpoint for the Miami Heat. Obviously, he's a phenomenal shooter. He's the self-proclaimed best shooting big man of all time. And the numbers are really good. Just this past season, he shot 42% from 3, and that's on about 5 attempts a night. And that's pretty close to the averages he's been shooting for the last several seasons. So I don't think that shooting is a fluke, and he's always been a very great rebounder. This past season, he was at about 13 per game. That includes 3 offensive rebounds. And we understand those are things that the Heat clearly need. And obviously, they need scoring. And Towns is the guy that has averaged over 20 points per game pretty much his whole career. And he was just over 24 points per game with the Knicks last season. So he does a lot of things the Miami Heat need in terms of size and rebounding and shooting and scoring, but he's not necessarily a great defender from the big man position, and that is something that I've been looking for a lot more of for the Heat. We're obviously hoping that can maybe be Khalil Ware, and perhaps Khalil Ware can be that interior presence that we've always wanted once he puts on some more size as he gets older in this league. But Towns is a big guy. He's just not a big defender. He's not a guy you really want out there guarding Jokic or Joel Embiid, who is probably not even going to be out there anyways. But you get my point. He's not known as a defender. He's really not a Heat culture type of player, which, yes, I understand. I've been saying for the last several months, I want more dogs on this team. I don't think that's Karl Anthony Towns. Karl is more of a cat, no pun intended. But we've seen the photo of him trying to back down DeMarcus Cousins, and you just don't make that kind of face if you want to be in Heat culture. That face is not Heat culture. That being said, I really do like Cat. I think he's a phenomenal player. The contract isn't great, but I don't think it's a killer either. This season, he's getting paid. He's going to get paid $53 million. Next season, he's going to get paid $57 million. And then he'll have a player option the following season when he's 32 years old at $61 million. So $61 million definitely sounds like a lot right now, but the way the CBA will be in a couple of years, I don't think a guy putting up his kind of numbers I don't think that's insane value for a guy with those kind of counting stats. Do they impact winning? That's a whole other debate. We've seen him on some pretty stinky teams in Minnesota. We also saw him on a pretty great New York Knicks team last year where he played pretty well. So I like Karl-Anthony Towns as a player. I definitely think he would fit on this team. Would I want to give up that kind of value for him? Maybe. The biggest pushback that Heat fans are going to say is, oh, what about Khalil Ware? Well, what are we going to do with him? Well, I hate to break it to you. I know Towns is 30, but Bam Adebayo's pushing 30 also. I think he's 28, turning 29. How long is it going to take Khalil Ware to get to a spot where he's ready to be a starting center on a championship caliber team? Because right now, going into the season, I'm not so sure Ware is actually going to start. We're seeing Nikola Jovic overseas. We're seeing Spo go to his games and be super impressed. We know Jovic has been balling out with Serbia, so maybe Jovic gets that starting 4 spot next to Bam Adebayo. And now Khalil Ware's a bench player. You didn't want to trade him for KD. It's like, what? You're just not going to trade Khalil Ware at all? You're going to hold on to him until he's ready to be a real contributor, reach his full potential. And by that point, how old is Bam Adebayo? In his mid-30s? So my point is you can only wait for so long. I think getting a guy like Towns fits the timeline a lot better. And also, you'd still have Khalil Ware as a trade asset. So yes, you are trading both your first round picks, but I think Ware is a good trade asset. I think Jovic is a good trade asset. And now maybe you can use those young pieces along with the first round picks that might open up next year or the year after that. And you can use all of those assets to now go get another guy. And now you have a potential big 4 with Hero, whatever other guard you get, win now type of guard with your other young players. You got Bam, you got Cat. And I just think from a fit standpoint and from a timeline standpoint, I think you definitely have a nice group. The Wiggins, I think we can all agree we're fine losing him, and Terry Rozier is an expiring contract anyway. So you're not really giving up much there, from a player standpoint. So maybe 2 first-round picks isn't that bad. Although my hesitancy is because just a year ago, the Knicks only traded 1 first-round pick to get him. So it's like the Knicks traded 1 pick to get him, and now we got to trade 2 picks to get him. I understand that the Knicks also attached Julius Randle, who was a former All-Star or I guess a former All-NBA type player, and they also traded Dante DiVincenzo, who's a good role player, but it's like, what are we doing here? Is Julius Randle. I don't think he's all that valuable. I don't think Timberwolves fans were super excited to get him nor keep him, although he was fine with Minnesota last year, had a decent playoffs until it ended poorly, but still, I just don't like the idea of the Heat having to give up more to get Cats than I think the Knicks had to get up to get him initially. But moving on from them, let's go to the New York Knicks, who of course are receiving Giannis Antetokounmpo in exchange for Cats, 1 first-round pick, 2 second-round picks, and Tyler Kolek. To me, this trade is absolutely unfair for every other team. Of course the Knicks would do this. This is the type of trade that I would do as a biased Heat fan, and then I get all these people in the comments telling me, oh, those other teams would never agree to it. I don't think the other teams would agree to this trade. How the hell are you telling me the Knicks are getting Giannis for 1 first-round pick? Now, yes, I know Andy Bailey's article said a couple of pick swaps as well, but those pick swaps might never even come to be, depending on how far they're out in the future. So I don't really value those pick swaps right now. And I don't think this is nearly enough value for the Bucks at all, I guess, to receive Giannis, at least from the Knicks. Because the part about this trade that really grinds my gears is the Heat are giving up more value to the Bucks to get Giannis to the Knicks than the Knicks are actually giving up to get him. Because if you look at this, the Knicks are getting 2 first-round picks from the Heat. 2 first-round picks. And they're only getting 1 first-round pick from the Knicks? That's not fair. You know how much this would piss us off as Heat fans if the Knicks were to get Giannis and the Heat helped facilitate that trade, even if the Heat didn't give up that much. But if the Heat were a part of a trade to get Giannis to the Knicks, that would be terrible. But in addition to that, the Heat are also giving up more draft capital than the Knicks. Now, this trade would absolutely piss me off as a Heat fan because although I like the Towns perspective of it, like I just said, I would never do it because it helps the Knicks get Giannis and the Heat give up more picks. Like, if this is the case, why wouldn't the Heat just give up those picks and have Giannis come to us. Throw in Tyler Hero, throw in Khalil Ware. I'm not going to help the Knicks get Giannis. That's a dumb trade from a Heat fan perspective. I don't think Pat Riley would ever be involved in something like this. And I also don't think he really likes Cat in general. I guess I should have mentioned that because I think the Heat had chances to get Cat. They never did. I always wondered if part of that was because of his relationship with Jimmy Butler. We know those two didn't necessarily get along. Obviously, the Heat wouldn't have to worry about that right now. But yeah, I mean, from the Knicks standpoint here, what the Heat are giving up to get Giannis to the Knicks, no, the Heat would pull themselves out of this trade immediately. Moving on, though, the Milwaukee Bucks, they're getting, I guess, a total of 3 first-round picks and 3 seconds. Like, come on, that's just filler at this point. And they're really getting no young players that they could bank on. I find it very hard to believe this is the value that the Bucks are getting for Giannis. 3 first? You could easily get 4 or 5 picks from damn near 29 other teams in the league. I think a Heat offer of Tyler Hero and Khalil Ware and our 2 first-round picks, I think it's better than this, than the 1 extra first-round pick they're getting here and no young talent. Terry Rozier's an expiring, so is Harrison Barnes. That helps their cap flexibility. But outside of that, you couldn't get 1 young guy from the Knicks. You couldn't even get Tyler Kolek, who was, I think, the Knicks' early second-round pick last year, maybe a late first-round pick. I think he's a fine player. You know, he's a bit of an older point guard from Marquette. I thought he'd actually be good in the Heat system. Didn't play a lot with the Knicks last year, but he's fine, you know. But you couldn't even get him. You couldn't get another young player from the Knicks. You couldn't get one of the young players from the Jazz or somebody. I don't know. I like you, Andy Bailey, but I'm starting to question whether you're a Knicks fan deep down, because this trade is heavily benefiting the Knicks and not really the other teams too much, or at least as much. So, yeah, I mean, this is not enough value for the Bucks whatsoever. Moving on, though, the San Antonio Spurs are getting Lauri Markkanen, and they're giving up 2 first-round picks and Keldon Johnson and Jeremy Sochan. I mean, that's kind of a lot also. I mean, I think Karl Anthony Towns' trade value is probably higher than Markkanen's. Had a better season last year, has a better contract, I think. Markkanen's is a little bit more money for a little bit more years, and also he had a down year last year. So why would the Spurs give up 2 first-round picks and 2 nice young players for Lauri Markkanen when the Heat are giving up 2 first-round picks and basically 2 players they don't really care about for Cat? That part of the trade doesn't make a lot of sense for me. I think that's a little bit too much value for Markkanen. I don't think he would go for that much on the open market. That being said, from a player standpoint, I actually do think that Markkanen fits the Spurs system pretty well. Obviously, you'd have a couple of twin towers there. My God, that would be nasty. You got a lineup of Fox and Castle and Markkanen and Wemby, and you could put Dylan Harper on the bench, or maybe eventually trade De'Aaron Fox to fill in that 3 spot. I just think he would be a great fit there. That being said, I don't think the Spurs would ever actually give up this much value at all. And then finally, you got the Utah Jazz, who are essentially dumping Lauri Markkanen, something they should desperately try to do, because if they're going to try to tank, Markkanen doesn't help that. You know, he had a down year last year, but he's still a good player. I think it would make sense for the Jazz to get off all of that money, get that salary cap flexibility, and also get a couple of picks if they can. And in return, they are getting Keldon Johnson, Bobby Portis, Sochan, and Kolek. So a couple of nice young players. Also a guy in Bobby Portis who I think they could flip. If I was Miami, I actually am interested in Bobby Portis. That's a guy that I kind of like a lot. So maybe the Jazz could flip Portis for some other assets, and then they're getting 2 firsts as well. This would just be a home run trade for the Utah Jazz. So to kind of recap everything, because I know I just ranted a lot, from the Heat perspective, and solely in terms of what they are getting versus what they are getting up, I don't mind it. You know, I don't love losing all our picks for Towns. That's the guy we're cashing in on. But it's also like, I don't want to be picky and keep waiting for the next star, and then the next star never comes. Go ahead, shake it up, and I think a guy like Towns fits pretty nicely from a fit standpoint and a timeline standpoint. From the Knicks perspective, home run. From the Bucks perspective, hell no, they're getting absolutely screwed over here. Even that first-round pick from the Knicks, it's like Andy Bailey has it as a 2026 first-round pick, so next year. The Knicks are going to be one of the best teams in the league next year, if they, with or without Giannis, truthfully, but especially if they get Giannis. So why would the Bucks want 3 first-round picks knowing damn well that one of them is going to be towards the end of the first round? I mean, right now, FanDuel has the Knicks as second favorites to win the Eastern Conference at plus 280. So obviously that's without Giannis. They have them being second in the whole conference. Imagine if they got Giannis. Imagine how much better they would be. So yeah, terrible trade for the Bucks. For the Spurs, I like the fit of Markkanen, but I don't think that's the swing they should take, not with that much assets at least. And then for the Utah Jazz, they are getting great value for Lauri Markkanen. But that's really all I got to say for this video. I'm very curious to hear what y'all think. Let me know if you like this trade overall, and also if you are interested in Karl Anthony Towns. If so, maybe I'll make some other separate videos with some trade ideas of how the Heat could get him. But make sure to like the video and subscribe because all your support is greatly appreciated. And I'll see y'all in the next video. Peace out, everyone.
Look, pull up in your city tryna get that dead face. Do it on my own, I don't need no dead weight. Had to kill him off, yeah, I need a head space. You know this homegrown bitch don't offend me.